Hello friends, very good morning and welcome to all of you. Please, if you all can able to hear me, please can I get yes in the chat window, friends? Just type yes in the chat window. Yes, thank you Tara, thank you Rakesh. So once again, thank you for joining thank you to all of you for joining this session. I am Tejas here. I am taking this session from Bangalore. I will be your maybe instructor for this webinar. So quick introduction to big data and Hadoop is the agenda today. So to tell brief about myself, I do have almost 20 years of IT experience, and from almost more than last 4 years, I am working on big data and Hadoop related technologies. Basically, we do sensor data analytics, and also we started working on supply chain management, like retail segment. I mean to say, supply chain management data analytics on retail segment we do. And today I will be handling almost around probably around 1 hour of this session on big data and Hadoop. Okay, so let us start today's session. What is big data? I am sure many of you might have come across this terminology called big data, right? Whenever you want to learn or whenever you want to check about Hadoop, you might have also seen this terminology, that is big data. So what is big data? Let's understand now with what are the challenges, and then what is big data itself, we'll see first. Today, we are all surrounded by data, we can say. We upload videos, take pictures on their via our cell phones, right? So text friends, forums, we go to technical forums, write comments, we go to portals, we write reviews, right? So we go to technical portals and then we technical issues, updates we do, right? So what are we trying to do? We are trying to contribute to the big data. Nowadays, big devices, machines and devices also generate data like RFID readers, cameras, microphones, sensor data coming from refrigerators, washing machine, ACs. All these are nothing but we are contributing to big data, right? So what is big data? Big data is just a term for large collection of data, we can say, whether it is structured, unstructured, semi-structured data. So it is just a term which is used to describe exponential growth and availability of data, huge data. So because of its size and volume, to do anything with it, like collection of data, managing of the data, querying of data, transfer, right? So process, anything to do with it is challenging, right? And data itself, if you see, we can say structured or semi-structured or unstructured data. Structured data we can refer to RDBMS data, where we have defined data type, size, that is structured data, right? And semi-structured data, example, we can say XML files, tab separated value TSV files, comma separated value CSV files. So CSV, TSV, XML, all this we can call it as semi-structured data. Why? Because we do have pattern in the data, but data itself might be completely unstructured. For example, comma separated value, we might know first column is this, second column is this, but we don't know what is the data inside that column, right? Same thing applies to XML file also. XML will have predefined tags, right, for the data, but data inside tags may be completely unstructured. So we do have pattern of the data, but data might be completely unstructured. So we can say semi-structured data, and data audio files, video files, simple PDF, text files are all we can call it as unstructured data. Unstructured means data which doesn't have predefined size, type, we can say unstructured. So as I said, big data is just a term for large collection of data, whether it is structured, semi-structured or unstructured data, right? And challenges, if you see, nowadays big data means we get data in huge volumes. That is, organizations generate data in terms of terabytes even per day. Enormous of volumes of data they generate, right? So I'm sorry. So we call it as volume. That is enormous volumes of data. We call it as size. I hope all of you know now terabyte means one sorry 1000 gigabytes. We call it as terabytes, right? So nowadays we also started talking about zettabytes of data. So globally zettabytes. So now if you see data itself as according to the size, 1 kilo gigabytes you can say as 1 terabyte of data, right? And 1k terabyte of data, this is gigabyte, we can say 1 terabyte, and 1k terabyte of data, 1k terabyte of data I can say 1 petabyte of data, right? And 1k petabyte of data we say, sorry, 1 exabyte of data, and 1k exabyte of data we refer as 1 zettabyte of data. So you can imagine the size. Nowadays we started talking about zettabytes of data available globally. You can imagine the size. If you have to represent this zettabyte of data, 1 followed by 21 zeros we need to write. That is the volume of data we are talking about. And when I say volume, right, it is not just to store and manage. So this data, when I say volume, not only just to store with it and then process, we might have to not only manage, I mean to say we might have to process the data itself, right? Now we are talking about big data and then challenges, and first challenge we are seeing of volume, that is size of the data. When I say this, we can take example here, volume of data. When I say, we can say, as I said, terabytes of data this organization gets generates, right? So Twitter, for example, if I take, they generate almost around 10 to 12 terabytes terabytes of data even per day. And if you need to process tweets, if you need to process these tweets to do, say for example, product sentiment analysis, so we need to deal with at least 10 to 12 terabytes of data. You can imagine the volume size of data if you need to, I mean we need to process to do product sentiment analysis. When I talk about volume, it is not just size to manage. I'm talking about for processing also, like these kind of use cases, we need to deal with these volumes of data, right? Say for example, one more example, volume. Say you want to do power, you want to predict power consumption. We might have to deal with more than hundreds of billions of annual meter readings, which is getting generated. Billions of annual meter readings means you can imagine the size volume of the data, right? So again, it is biggest challenge, and data will be coming from multiple sources. When we talk about big data, we collect data from multiple sources of data. Simple like census data, to gather climate information. We can take it and do, we can put it onto analytics, right? So social media sites posts, we can take it as data. Cell phone GPS signals, we can take it as data. Data comes from everywhere. The data comes from multiple sources, and because of this types data types is also multiple, right? We might have to deal with n number of types of data, not only just CSV files. Now we might have to deal with XML files, we might have to deal with PDF files, audio files, video files, JSON data, XML data, right? So n number of types of data we need to deal with. That is also typically challenge, right? And the speed at which these data are getting generated, volume and variety, we have seen. Pace at which these data are generating means velocity I'm talking about. If you see online trade events, more than 5 million trade events happen per day. If you want to identify potential fraud, you need to deal with millions of trade events being generated per day. And again, coming back to Twitter generates more than 6,000 to 7,000 tweets per day. That is the velocity, that means rate at which these data are getting generated. Again, it is biggest challenge, right? And abnormality in data, we call it as veracity, that is inconsistency in data, abnormality, right? These are challenges as far as big data is concerned, right? To do anything with it, that means to just store, manage, transfer, right? So anything to do with it, so it is challenging, right? So now let us discuss about some of the verticals where big data being generated. So first we can see this social media sites, right? Social media sites like Facebook data, for example. So Facebook generate more than 500 terabytes of data, we can imagine, right? And they don't just generate the data, they need to process the data, right? So they have to manage a lot of advertisers, right? So they might have to analyze millions, thousands of reports for analyzing their advertisers, right, for their business benefit. And LinkedIn, basically you might all have observed, when you upload your profile, it will come out with a recommendation to other companies. Like probably you might have seen, if you upload, it might tell recommendation to this companies list, it might give based on your profile. So you can imagine LinkedIn millions of profiles, which will be being updated on real time, and then come based on the company's keywords and then company's requirements, it will be coming out with recommendation engine, right? So Facebook to their advertisers, and then to their application developers, right? So third party developers, I mean to say, Facebook, so they will be generating for advertisers, third party developers, lot of reports. And LinkedIn like recommendation engine. So they don't store huge, just manage huge data, they don't have, they have to process also, right? And clickstream data, we all know, when users navigate a website, the clicks are logged for further analytics, right? So if you want to do further analytics, like navigation pattern you want to find, clickstream data, huge data they will be getting generated, right? We call it as data trail the user leaves when visiting a website. The data trail. Though again, they are all semi-structured data, basically. So semi-structured data, and also sometimes we call it as weblogs, right? Weblogs. So basically, these kind of data are used by online advertisement companies, e-commerce companies. Again, data getting generated, huge data. And sensors data. Sensors data, basically we use to monitor machines or infrastructure like ventilation equipments, bridges, energy meters, airplane engines. But you can imagine huge data getting generated, right? When I say airplane engine, so every flight will generate terabytes of data, that too per trip. So we use these kind of volumes of data to do predictive analysis, to repair and replace the items before the break. We can get this data and then analyze, right? And connected devices, best example is if you take smartphones, great example, right? For example, when you use navigation application like Google Maps or Waze, for example, your phone sends and pings back reporting its location and speed. This is basically the location and speed, probably with direction, right? So this is basically used for calculating traffic hotspots. When you are using navigational applications like Google Maps, Waze, so your phone itself will be sending and pinging back a lot of location details, speed and direction, all these things. Just imagine hundreds of millions of phones, that even billions of devices consuming this data and generating this data. Not easy at all, right? Huge volume of data we are talking about, right? So now if you see just a few example of machine data, we say business process data, business process logs, which is coming from business process management logs. Something like our application logs, right? Application logs we can collect from local log files, log4j, log4net, right? So basically web servers which is generating like WebLogic, WebSphere, JBoss, and the PHP applications like weblogs. So business process logs will be generated by business process management logs, right? And again, we use these business process logs to do consumer activity across multiple channels, purchases, accounts. Similarly, application logs also we will use for user activity, finding user activity, fraud detection. And application logs we also use it for application performance itself, right? Again, in terms of huge volumes of data, these are the applications we can do, like application logs, this business process logs, this call detail records. Again, these call detail records will be collected from charging data records or Even we can say event data records logged by telecoms and networking switches, right? These are used for billing, revenue assurance, customer assurance, marketing intelligence, right? And SCADA data, right? We call it as supervisory control and data acquisition data, right? So identify trends and patterns. Stock market trader, stock market data. Again, stock market generates day-to-day terabytes of data. Like, they don't just store it, they will do stock trading analytics to determine trends for optimal trades, stock markets. And retail segment, let us take this Reliance, for example. We all know Reliance has almost around more than 2000 outlets all over India, right? So if you want to collect all this point of sale data from all the outlets and then do analytics, point of sale data analytics, not easy, right? Because of size of data, huge volumes of data we need to store and manage, right? So some of the additional examples, let me give it here. So what kind of data we generate? Say now, as I said, sensor data. Sensor data, say assume, which is fixed to airplanes, for example, airplane engines data, right? So now when I say airplane engine sensor data, right, terabytes of data gets generated, not easy at all. So what we can do with it, we can determine root cause of failures, issues and defects in near real time, we call it as sensor data analytics, if you do, right? And we all know nowadays all the vehicles are now, we started keeping this GSM GPRS modems. So basically we collect these GSM GPRS modems and we do route optimization. Basically this will be really helpful for package delivering vehicles. So route optimization we can do for package delivery application, that vehicles, that too while they are on the road itself, we can analyze real time. You can imagine the size of the data, right? And again, retail segment, by analyzing this point of sale data, POS data, we say point of sale data, we can do stock keeping unit forecasting, basically analysis for maximum profit or clear inventory, we can call it as, right? SKU forecasting, we say, that is stock keeping unit, right? And we can also send tailored recommendation to mobile devices by analyzing two big data, and quickly we can identify customers who matters most. So all these are use cases of big data. So now, complexity in today's world is not data comes from multiple sources, how to collect. The real issue is that how you are using that data, what you do with that data matters, how you process, and then how you deal with data, right? So we see now what this big data can be helpful, and then how to manage, we need to deal with it, right? Not only storing, I mean to say, but challenges, if you see, because of enormous of data, many sources of data we collect, and speed at which these data are getting generated, anything to do with it, like not only just storage and manage, anything processing, everything is challenging, right? So that is about big data. We have just seen what is big data, what is the meaning of big data, and what are the challenges, right? And also we have discussed about use cases, what we do with this kind of big data which is getting generated at different verticals. Now let us see what is Hadoop, right? Let us understand what is Hadoop, and then how we can manage these kind of volumes of data. Hadoop, basically we say, open source software platform managed by Apache Software Foundation, which is used to store and manage huge volumes of data, and very cost effectively and efficiently. That is the advantage of Hadoop. So basically, Hadoop is Hadoop. It's a way for storing enormous data across distributed server, and then running distributed analytics application on each cluster. So we need to understand this. Let me explain what is Hadoop and then in detail what is Hadoop and then how it can be helpful for storage of huge volumes of data, right? So first point is we say Hadoop cluster. We say Hadoop cluster. Hadoop cluster means group of servers, the group of Hadoop programs, or sorry, set of, you can say, set of Hadoop programs, set of Hadoop programs running in group of machines, or even we can say nodes. This is Hadoop cluster. Hadoop cluster means set of programs running in group of machines or nodes, we can say. That is Hadoop cluster, right? So now in Hadoop we have set of programs. We call it as name node, data node, and resource manager and node manager, right? And these four daemons are very important programs. Hadoop programs, we also call it as daemons. So basically these programs manages Hadoop cluster, right? So main important parts of Hadoop, if you see, we have two parts, that is Hadoop distributed file system, which manages, stores and read, which is used to deal with files. Hadoop distributed file system. And one more important is processing environment. We call it as yarn, yet another resource negotiator. So processing environment, these are two main components of Hadoop, SDFS and yarn. SDFS is taken care by these two daemons, and resource, that is processing, is taken care by resource manager and node manager. Is it fine? So basically Hadoop, two components. One is SDFS, which will take care of storage handling, and second yarn, which will take care of processing. And SDFS is taken care by name node and node manager, and yarn is taken care by resource manager and node manager. And in SDFS, this program acts as master, and this program tells this data node what it has to do. That's where, and this data node obeys master's order. So that's where we say this as slave and this as master. Similar arrangement here also. Resource manager tells what node manager has to do. So node manager obeys master order. So we say node manager as slave and resource manager as master. So like this, these four daemons coordinate to manage Hadoop cluster. These two are two main components, and these two programs for this, these two programs for this. That is, name node and data node manages SDFS, Hadoop distributed file system, and resource manager and node manager manages yarn, yet another resource negotiator, right? And if you have multiple machines, one machine will assign it as master and will organize name node and resource manager to run, and in rest all we keep it as slaves where data node and node manager runs. This is Hadoop cluster. If you have multiple machine, for example, if you have 5 servers in a cluster, one will organize for master. What is master? I told you here, in SDFS name node is master, in yarn resource manager is master, right? So now name node and resource manager we organize to run in one server, so that's where we call it as this server as master, and rest all we can say slaves, because data node and node manager will run. Slave daemons run in all the machines. In all the machines, slave daemons run. This is typical Hadoop cluster configuration, right? So if you go for two big clusters like 50, 100, 200 servers, sometimes we run name node in a separate master, resource manager in a separate master. For small cluster like this, we'll be organizing one master to run both these daemons. But in typically in real time, if you have multiple servers, so more than 100, 50, 100 servers, so we go for separate machine for name node and separate machine for resource manager. Is it fine? So this will be our Hadoop typical cluster configurations with daemons. Daemons means these programs. What are these programs? Name node and data node, which will take care of file system, and the resource manager and node manager takes care of yarn. Now, what is the beauty of Hadoop is Hadoop uses all commodity computers as slave machines. It doesn't require high-end servers. It doesn't require high-end servers. We say it can use just commodity computers. Is it fine? So first point why Hadoop became very much popular is Hadoop is cost effective. Because it doesn't require, not required. So expensive servers not required, we can say. Expensive servers not required. That is why Hadoop has become very much popular. Just normal computers, right? So with at least minimum of 8 GB, 12 GB, we can actually configure as slaves. Master, probably we might have to deal with good servers, maybe because the master manages the complete cluster level, whether it is file system or processing. Master manages. Otherwise, we'll have n number of machines, one master and rest all slaves, right? So that's why Hadoop, we say, very cost effective. Point number one. And second, when we talk about SDFS, I'm talking about file system. Hadoop is a distributed file system. Hadoop is a distributed file system. So that means what happens is when you copy data to Hadoop, what it does is it splits the data into blocks and distributes across cluster. So distribution of the data automatically will be managed by Hadoop, that is SDFS. Hadoop distributed file system will manage. So if you have terabytes of data, it splits and distributes across cluster. And along with this, what it does is it replicates. It replicates by itself. By itself, it replicates the data and manages fault tolerance. So Hadoop, we say robust. Hadoop, we say robust. Why? Because when you lose a node or system, it redirects the work to another machine where the replication is available automatically. So second very important point, Hadoop is it is robust. By keeping replications, it assumes hardware failure. Handle, we can say it handles hardware failures by itself by keeping replications. So we say Hadoop is robust. And one more important point why Hadoop is become famous is Hadoop, we say scalable. Scalable means assume now today you want to manage 500 terabytes of data. So you have each server of say 10 TB. How many servers we require? We require 50 servers to manage 500 terabytes of data. So each server is 10 TB means 50 server is good enough. Now assume later you want another say 300 terabytes of data to be added. in Hadoop without changing extra Hadoop configuration. We can just add plus 30 nodes. So 50 plus 30, 80 machines, 80 nodes, 80 servers can manage this addition data also. So 800 terabytes of data at any given point of time. If the data is getting more and more, Hadoop cluster you can just add nodes. And beauty of this is one more, servers or nodes, both, anything you can say, right? Beauty of this is all data all data will be stored and all data will be stored and processed only in slave machine, which can be very cost effective machines, right? So all data always will be stored in slave machines. So if you are getting more and more data, just add slave machines. So this is the cluster configuration I said, right? So all these slaves here, 4 slaves we have with one master. This is the architect, this is the cluster configuration. Now if I have 5 servers, I can configure like this. And if you are getting more and more data, just add slaves, right? So that's where we call it Hadoop, we call it as scalable. And finally, fourth point, Hadoop is, we also say, flexible. Means any kind of data we can store and process. Any multiple sources of data we can move to Hadoop. That's where we say flexible. So these 4 important points, important characteristics or features we can say. All these 4 features makes Hadoop to become strong and strong day by day, right? First reason is cost effective. We don't go for expensive hardwares. Second, when you copy data, it splits, and with replication it manages internally. That's where we say robust. It does the fault tolerance by, it manages the fault tolerance by itself. And scalable, as you get more and more data, just add nodes. And flexible, any kind of data it can store and process. So these are 4 important points why Hadoop is becoming popular day by day, right? And very cost effective solution it is. And any volume of data you can store, terabytes and even petabytes of data you can store. For example, Facebook uses a cluster. For example, Facebook, they are using 2 types of clusters. One is 1100 machines. One cluster they have 1100 machines. Other cluster they have 300 machines. So each of them on an average, if 10 terabyte, so 10 terabyte into 1000, right? So into 1000, 10,000 terabytes you can say, right? 10 terabyte into 300 machines, 3000 terabytes. That is 3 petabytes of data you can store. 3 petabyte of data, right? If each can store 10 terabyte. At the same time, if each can store 10 terabyte each, so 1100, probably approximately around 11 petabytes, right? Like this, you can imagine the volume of data Hadoop cluster can store. That's where we say scalable, very, very important. And flexible, any kind of data you can store and process. That is the advantage of Hadoop, right? So friends, if you have any queries, can you please ask me now? Just we had a quick introduction about Hadoop, how Hadoop is becoming day by day popular, how all this organization, why they are using Hadoop, right? So do you have any queries here? Nanda, Rajender, Tara, Shastri, any questions please? Or even I can unmute, you can discuss if you have mic. No queries, is it? Okay, fantastic. Right. So probably if you have any queries, you can write to us, right? So We also say Hadoop ecosystem. Hadoop ecosystem means lot of self-standing software projects have been built around this Hadoop. Hadoop basically we are talking about HDFS and processing environment, right? That is the basic of Hadoop framework. But ecosystem means self-standing software projects which is built on top of Hadoop, which addresses variety of problem statements. For example, distributed programming. I told you Hadoop itself comes with Apache MapReduce. So this is Yarn components. I told you two main components of Hadoop, right? So HDFS and processing environment, Yarn. So processing framework, we call it as MapReduce framework. This is good for batch processing. We have a distributed programming called MapReduce. This is good for batch processing, right? So Apache Pig comes with a language called Pig Latin. Very, very simple to use, and it is almost equal to SQL queries. Apache Pig uses high-level commands to analyze the data, right? So Apache Pig basically to analyze the data, and again it internally uses MapReduce. And we also have n number of processing framework like Jackal, Apache Spark, Apache Tej. So I'm sure all of you might have heard about Spark. Spark is basically quick and faster. It is a in-memory processing. It gives in-memory processing environment. So basically Spark is faster than MapReduce. This is classical way of programming. MapReduce programming was classical way. It was used for batch processing. In fact, Hadoop was basically optimized for batch processing, we say. Hadoop SDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System is optimized, we can say, to access batches of data set quicker. We can say data set, batches of data set quicker. Means in SDFS, what happens is, if you copy data, I told you it will be split and distributed, right? It splits the data into blocks and distributes across cluster. And when you process the data, processing will be happening in across all these blocks. These blocks are physical division of the data. So the blocks of data will be processed in parallel. For example, let me show you this. Say now assume you have say 200 MB of say web.log file. Assume you have 200 MB of web.log file. So when you copy to Hadoop, Hadoop splits this as into blocks. First point, splits this data into blocks. What it does is by default block maximum cutoff size of block is 128 MB. So when you copy 200 MB weblog file, what it does is, by keeping this in mind, right, 128 MB cutoff size. So what it does is it splits this data into two blocks. 120 block 1 will be 128 MB. I told you, right? Because maximum size of a block can be 128 MB. This is by default size. We default size in Hadoop. We can also configure this size, block size. So data will be split into blocks and distributed. So when you copy 200 MB data, 200 MB data will be split into two blocks. Block 1, block 2, again remaining 72 MB data. So if you copy a file, what happens? It will split into two blocks and distributes. And these two blocks of data will be processed in parallel. So that's where we say it is optimized to access batches of data set quicker. For example, now if we have say some sensor dot dat file, so say assume if it is 1 GB of file, 1 GB. So now 10 approximately 8 blocks will be created and distributed across machine, across clusters. So all these 8 blocks will be processed in parallel if you start processing this file. That's where we say SDFS is optimized to access batches of data set quicker. We call it as higher throughput because it processes the data in parallel, entire data in parallel. We say high throughput, right? So it is optimized to access batches of data set quicker rather than particular record in that data set. Hadoop is not good for processing a particular record in the data set. You want to write, we call it as low latency applications. So you want to write low latency application. That means you want to fetch particularly quickly a particular record and then see. For example, best example is assume you go to ATM, you insert your card, debit card, credit card. What happens? Based on the password, the card will be authenticated, right? So it has to be done in milliseconds. It has to be done in milliseconds. So Hadoop is to achieve high throughput, but is not designed to achieve sub-second latency needed for interactive data analysis. It is not good for interactive data analysis. Hadoop is not good for, or we can say it cannot do particular row level record. See, Hadoop was not optimized. Hadoop was optimized for high throughput. So these MapReduce kind of a processing framework used to do batch processing. There are a lot of use cases you can do using batch processing. That means analyzing entire data, which was Hadoop meant for. And as we come across day by day, we also seen demand of near real-time processing of the data which is stored on Hadoop. So that is the result of this Apache Spark, right? And sorry, Apache Spark you can do in-memory processing, and same thing here. Apache Tej, it is also one of processing framework we can say. It is used to process complex data processing tasks in Yarn. It is not for end users. It is basically a processing framework which we can use it, which developers can use it. And Jackal basically functional or declarative programming language for large volumes of data. It was created by IBM Labs around 2008 and it was released to open source. It allows us to select, join, group, filter data which is there on Hadoop. The same thing Apache Pig also does. Again, you can, as I said, all these things, selecting the data, joining the data, grouping. So Pig is good for ETL kind of a job. ETL means extract, transform, load, right? So ETL kind of a job, Pig is good. Like this, you have a lot of distributed frameworks and SQL environment on top of Hadoop. You have a lot of things. It all started with Apache Hive. It all started with Apache Hive, processing SQL based queries, right? So Apache Drill, again, basically, sorry, open source versions of Google Dremel systems, we say. Again, it is used to achieve high throughput, and it is not, again, Hadoop, we all understand, it is only to achieve high throughput, right? So if you have to run low latency applications, again, Drill addresses this problem. Cloudera's Impala. Cloudera also a commercial company which uses Apache Hadoop distributions, and they have their own distribution called CDH, Cloudera distribution for Hadoop. They have come out with Impala, basically SQL based queries it runs. Facebook has come out with Presto, and we also have Apache Phoenix. Basically, Phoenix we call it as SQL skin for HBase. HBase again HBase is one of the HBase is one of the sorry Hadoop ecosystem, one of the Hadoop ecosystem, which is no SQL database itself, which is running on top of Hadoop. So HBase is a no SQL database which is built on top of Hadoop. So this uses Java APIs to analyze the data, and so Apache Phoenix basically the SQL skin of our HBase we can say. And the difference between HBase, again you might be wondering why we require database itself on top of Hadoop again. Hadoop again, it is a distributed file system. Why do we require this database? This database is basically to do low latency applications, to write database, low latency applications and row level updates, deletes, everything we can do here, which was missing in this normal HDFS processing, that is normal MapReduce programming. We were not able to do this low latency applications. It was not meant for that, I mean. So Spark, again, I told you Spark, Apache Spark here, right? It comes with multiple features. Basically, we have SQL dedicated to submit SQL based queries to analyze the data, that too very fast compared to Apache Hive. So this is classical SQL based environment which was built initially. Nowadays, people, all of us, we started using a Spark SQL, which is really fast, right? And machine learning tools. I hope all of you know what is machine learning tools, right? It focuses on prediction. You can do predictions, you can predictive analysis using machine learning tools, right? We say based on known properties learned from training data, it can predict. Apache Mahout is one of the best example. There are three broad categories for machine learning: recommendation engine, classification, clustering. All these things you can do using Apache Mahout. We also have Weka, which can be integrated to Hadoop. Spark mlib. I told you, right? In from Spark, you can do multiple operations. So Spark also comes with machine learning libraries, right? And security, Hadoop ecosystem. If you see a lot of again open source security features itself, we have. And toppest one is I hope many of you might have heard about this. That is Kerberos. Hadoop daemons leverages Kerberos to perform user authentication. And Sentry, basically Sentry enables role based or fine grained authorization for all these like Cloudera, Impala, Hive Server 2, all this kind of Hadoop environment. We can also integrate Active Directory with Hadoop security to manage user accounts, right? And Gateway basically provides single point of secure access for Hadoop clusters, and Ranger provides complete centralized Hadoop security like authentication, authorization, accounting, data protection, right? So these ecosystems deal with security and system deployment. So basically by using these tools, it is easy to use Hadoop. If you are using core Apache Hadoop, you need to install Apache, you need to install all ecosystem, and then you need to manage one by one. But say for example, if you are using Apache Ambare, it is easy to use Hadoop and manage web-based UI backed up by RESTful APIs. And we also have Cloudera HUE, one of the web application for interaction with Hadoop. And we also have Apache Mesos, basically cluster management we can do. It is a cluster manager, we can say, which provides resource sharing, isolation across cluster applications, everything it does. Right. So all these are part of Hadoop ecosystems. When you start basic Hadoop, you need to know what kind of tools to run, use to run. So these are Hadoop ecosystems. Probably if you are good at programming, MapReduce, Java programming, you can look at more onto this Apache MapReduce. Or if you are good at maybe SQL based queries, you can look at this environments. Cloudera Impala, Spark SQL, Apache Phoenix. You need to start with Apache Hive to understand basics of Hadoop. Then you can slowly get into Spark SQL or Cloudera Impala, anything you are feasible, right? And machine learning tools like Apache Mahout itself you can use, or Spark MLib, which is picking up really good, right? So security, we can use Kerberos or Sentry, and to manage Hadoop clusters, we can use Mesos, Ambari, Cloudera, HUE, again good user interface, right? All these things you need to know, right? So what did we discussed today? Now we have seen what is big data, what are the use cases where we need to use with big data, what is the advantage of dealing with big data we have understood, and we have seen what is Hadoop. Basic architecture I was trying to explain, right? So what is it? It distributes the data and manages in the slave machines, and it also allows us to do parallel processing. That is the advantage of Hadoop. And it is robust and it is scalable and it is cost effective. That is the advantage of Hadoop. And with Hadoop, we have a lot of tools which is developed to address specific problem statements like distributed processing. You can learn Pig or Apache Spark. SQL on Hadoop, you can start with Hive and look into Spark SQL or Cloudera Impala, and also Apache Phoenix, and machine learning tools. Probably you do one or two simple use cases using Apache Hadoop Mahout. That is good enough, right? And once you learn all these things, right, there are a lot of opportunities as Hadoop. If you see, there are a lot of profile itself. You can see Hadoop developer you can work as. Probably Hadoop developer, big data Hadoop engineer, Hadoop lead software engineer. All these things are same, maybe different names, right? So, and Hadoop architect, once you have good experience from different domains and then good expertise on all Hadoop ecosystem, you can work it you can you can you can be working as Hadoop architect. Based on the organization's need, you can architecture the Hadoop cluster and then you can design the processing environment. That is the job of architect. So but all needs is you need to at least work as at least 2 to 3 4 years as a Hadoop developer. And you are a fresher, you need to just learn all this Hadoop and then Hadoop ecosystem, and probably you need to stick on one or two tools more for 3 to 4 months and then do some couple of projects. Then you are good enough to look at as Java Hadoop developer. Or sorry, if you are good at Java, then you can focus. You don't need to really use all these tools like Apache Pig, Hive. You can also, by using simple Java program, you can write MapReduce programs. Java, simple Java, core Java knowledge is good enough. And big data, Hadoop software lead, both all of them are same kind of profile. Hadoop tester, again, picking up really good. We have a lot of environments, I told you, right? Processing environments, right? So we started with all MapReduce, and then nowadays Pig, Hive also we have seen, and nowadays lot of tools like Spark SQL, Spark MLib. So we can test all these programs. So again, slowly testing opportunities are picking up really good. And once when you know the basic platform of Hadoop and then couple of environments, you can deep dive into data scientist. You can also look into this. If you know Python or Java, so that is good enough. So Python based lot of tools, I mean libraries are coming out, machine learning libraries you can integrate with Hadoop. Java based, again you can integrate with Hadoop. So Mahout is Java based, for example. And nowadays R statistical analytics tools, right? R itself you can integrate with Hadoop. Right? So like this you can look at as a, you can probably later work as a data scientist. We had a just quick introduction about what is big data and what it can tell us, what is the applications, what is the challenges, and what is Hadoop, how it will be really helpful to us, and what are the ecosystems we have discussed. Right? I hope all of you enjoyed today's session. Thank you very much for all of you to join this session, friends. Thanks Nanda, thanks Rajender, Tara, Shastri. Thank you very much. Take care, all of you, friends. Any queries, please do write to us. Thank you very much, friends. Take care. Good luck to all of you, friends.